Hi everyone. Today I'm going to do a 4-part series on a beginner set of learning practices that you can use. And what we're going to do today is we're going to create a Smarties box. And part of that Smarties box is that we start with, let me just put that down here, we start with the color wheel and learn about mixing 3 different colors in order to get your color wheel. And then from there we do a couple of different washes so that you can get an idea of washes here as well. And then we start getting into a little bit of how are we going to actually do our Smarties and some of our lettering, and then eventually get into the actual Smarties box. So come along for the fun of it and get prepared to use Hansa Yellow Light, phthalo blue green shade, and permanent rose to paint these wonderful little vignettes. Hi everyone, I'd like to have some fun today doing a few basic beginner items with my Smarties packet as my guide. The reason I'm using a Smarties Nestle's packaging is because it has all the colors I want to create. And we can start with practicing the color wheel a little bit, then moving on to a couple of different washes, and eventually actually making our Smarties box. So right now in front of me I have here a circle that I just made out of a tin top. It just so happened to fit into that particular section, which is about 4 inches by 4 inches, I think, approximately. A little bit more, 4.5 by about 4.5. This is a quarter sheet of watercolor paper. Quarter sheet is 15 by 11. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a watercolor wheel like this. And so that we can start with our colors, and I'll explain to you which colors I'm using, and we'll go from there. So what the idea is, you want to have 12 little triangles. And for me, the easiest is to start with a small X just at the top here. Well, that's already going to be a little bit of a problem. Let's try just making that up here. I think I'm going to have to make it a little wider. Should have put a little dot in the center of my circle, so I know where those lines have to go through, so that should be right about there. So let's try and work with that dot. And if I work with that dot, I can get approximately 12 triangles. So there's one set, and that's going to be my light yellow. And this was going to be my violet, which are opposite on the color wheels. And now I have to get the same thing over here. Oops. About there. So that's going to be not quite yet. We need to get another set in here. And another set here. Okay. Well, I've got all my triangle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, but they're not really well shaped together because I made my first set and my second set a little too big. So let's try and fix that a bit. What I'm using here is a soft gummed eraser. It's phenomenal for doing erasing on watercolor paper because you can stretch it. It's like silly putty, and once you stretch it you can get all the graphite all mixed up, and it's not going to impact and make a whole lot of lines on your paper. It doesn't do a lot of rubber erasure things, and it's really good for not mucking up and creating a lot of fingerprints on your paper. Let me just fix this little triangle right here. Okay, I think we can go with that. Maybe we could just make this a little thinner here. Let's see here. Let's try that one. If I do that, I erase the right line, we've pretty much got it all right there. Fantastic. So So the colors today that I'm going to be using are a Winsor Newton that has really almost completely been finished up, permanent rose, which happens to be here. It's a bit contaminated right now. I will have to take some water and clean that color up. I was using, as you can see, I was using another color with it, and it's made a nice purple in there, but not the purple right now that I need. Oh, you can't see that. There we go. So I've got to have to pick that up with some tissue and clean that out. Let me just find a tissue. There, that's way better. Okay, so that's my first color. My second color is Hansa Yellow Light. And Hansa is an excellent, excellent yellow that is cool, and then I can create it warms. And then my final color here is also a phthalo blue green shade. And the reason I'm using a green shade, I just happen to have the green shade right here, Winsor Newton, is because it is on the cooler side, but it'll allow me to mix all my warms up if I wanted to. So the first thing I need to do is clean that brush that you saw all the red magenta on. And I'm using a Da Vinci spin top brush because it has a really nice point. I also have an Escoda here with a similar type of point, and I'll be working with those two at the moment. So let's start with my yellow. Here's my yellow. I'm trying not to make it too dark. We'll start with putting the dark part in the center here, and then just adding a little water to the brush and pushing it up and trying to lighten it. And then pushing, if it's too dark at the top, trying to push the color back so it goes into the center of our wheel. Okay, that's our first color. That's the light yellow. If I want to make a warmer yellow, and I'll do the warms on this side and the cools on this side, I would take that same yellow, and I have to use my mixing tray. Let's find some empty space on my mixing tray. That's all dirty, so let's clean that up. Sign of a healthy artist is when your early things are being used. If it's too clean, you're not being creative enough. Okay, so I'm just trying to clean one that doesn't have a lot of blue in it there. Very perfect. So with a little bit of the yellow and a little bit of my permanent rose, I will warm up my yellow. Well, I warmed it way too much there, so I got to bring in some more yellow. And that's still too orangey, so I've got to clean my brush off and try and bring some yellow just on this side because we're going to need that orange. A little bit more yellow. And I think we've warmed it up enough that I can put it right here. There we go. So I'm going to put that nice warm yellow right in the center there. And then push it out. Now what I should be doing is keeping some of these colors because I'll be needing them for my Smarties. I don't see really, I see a little bit, if you look, I see a little bit of light, almost no color, but that's quite warm. That's almost to an orange, so we're going to need that. So I've got that here, and since I've got my orange right away, I'm going to put my orange right in this one, right in here. Let's try and make that a little bit darker by adding just a bit more permanent rose to it. And then just cleaning our brush and pushing it back here so it's nice and light up at the top. Okay, we've got to be careful that we don't go too close to the other colors because we'll end up blending everything and we'll not have anything that's a simple color. So now we need a red, but not a red that's the permanent rose red, which is over here. We need more of a Santa Claus red for the Santa Claus suit. So that means we need to bring some of that orange in to get it more warmed up. Let's try that. There we go. And now we have our red. Now I could darken that. I'm just going to add a little bit of water to lighten that up here at the top. And try not to touch. And just add a little darkener in there. Okay, so now our cool red, oh, you see I've already got some water in there and it's contaminating over. So I'll have to push that down a bit. Alright, to not completely destroy all the color that I have in there at the moment, I'll come over here and work on this side. And right here is going to be my phthalo blue. Very carefully, not too much blue, just a nice light phthalo blue. And that phthalo blue is probably going to be close to that color right in there. I'll add a little bit darker so you can see how dark it can get. And I'll show you on another swatch that I have, a color pattern sheet that I did. You can see here that this is Hansa Yellow Light. This is my Permanent Rose, and this is my phthalo blue green shade. And how here I was able to get a darker yellow, and then to also get similar orange, and then to how I managed to get my greens and things like that. But that gives you also an idea, and this is a great practice to take your colors and to break them out onto little squares. Okay, so we've got my Permanent Phthalo Blue green shade. And so now what I'm going to do is I need to go to a green. And the way to get a green without having to go back in and actually find a green, because you can see I've got lots of nice greens there. I do not want to do that. I want to mix it from those colors that I just showed you. And I should keep them here where you can see them. Okay, to make a green, you take a little bit of phthalo blue and take some of that nice warm yellow that we had over there. And you get a very nice green. And that green will go right in here. And that green is a nice complement to red. And I'll just put a little bit more at the base here. It's also like a viridian green. Now if I want it to be a little bit of a more of a turquoisey cool green, I would take just a hint of that yellow. Gotta be careful, I don't want to contaminate my Hansa yellow. And I just make it a little darker. Now it's got more blue in it. So it's on the blue-greenish side. And phthalo is such a strong color that you have to be careful that you don't use too much. I'm just going to lighten that up out there. Now I can see that most of my colors, or my blue on my Smartie packet, aren't really that color. They're more of a yellowish green, which we have to achieve over here. How to do that? We need to take that green that we've got and add a little bit more of that yellow to it. Getting close, but I need more yellow, so I'm just going to go right back into my Hansa yellow there and keep adding the Hansa yellow to make it to the yellow side. And look at that. We now have that yellow green. We could even go just a bit more, and that should allow us to get what we need for our green Smarties. And because I had used more paint, it's already much darker than, say, this green that I had with the viridium. And of course, anytime you let it dry, it's going to become lighter. So if I applied another layer onto this later on into the center here, you'd see it, I can make it much darker. Alright, having done that, my yellow here looks very similar to my Hansa Yellow Light. But I'll need to fix that up later. Okay, so now we're going to make a warmer blue, and how we do that is we take a little bit of the phthalo blue, and we add a little bit of Permanent Rose to it. Well, that's just taking us to the violet, which is the perfect complement to the yellow, so I'm just going to go right in here and put a nice violet in there. I'm going to let that dry. And one of the things that I just was showing you was the Santa Claus red that I did here that kind of got that little bit of extra fun stuff happening in it. So I'm going to re-clean my brush in a better, cleaner water. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to go back to that red there and try and fix that a bit. And if I add, there's not a lot here, but if I add just a little bit more, it's going to darken in the center there. Okay, so while that is drying up, I'm going to add a little bit permanent rose right in here and re-get that little bit more color. And just drop in a bit more in there. There you go. But what I'd like to see is to show you is what the permanent rose itself looks like, because it's a much cooler red. So we're going to bring that over here. We're going to put that right there. Look at that. Totally different red. On the coolish side, because there's more blue in it, not so much yellow in it. And what we need now is a mixture of those two in here, and then a mixture of those two in here. But my purple is really, really wet right now. So let's try something else. Let's try a graduated wash with our purple. I'm just going to mix up that permanent rose with a little bit more blue and get us back to our purple. And show you two different kinds of washes that we can do. That's a really nice purple. Just red it up just a bit more. There we go. Lovely violet. Okay, add a little water, because now we need water. Now, there's two ways that you can do and add water. You've got a spray bottle. You can just spray a little water in there. You even have, and I just had it behind here. Let's see if I can find it. Yes, an eyedropper. These are, whoops, sorry. These are just little cool things that you can use. I just moved my video around a bit. Lovely. And the eyedropper, you just pull some water out of your supply of water. It sits in there, and then you can pour that down in here and you've got now more water to use. Because in a wash, you definitely need to have a lot more water mix in your tray, and you should test it out too. So how can I test it out? Well, I don't want to test it out. I could put a little bit in here, see how that goes. It's gonna probably give me a watermark, and we'll see how that goes. Okay. Oh, I'm seeing a problem already. It's escaping. Let's clean that up here a bit. Anytime you have a problem, always have a tissue handy, because that's one of your friends to get some of your messes taken away. And I see here that the yellow has been creeping in here because it didn't let it dry either. So let's start with just a simple, straightforward wash. I'm going to change my brush to a flat brush. And all I'm going to do is take my paint and go across like this up in the upper part to show you what a wash, a normal straight. This is dry paper with my color on my wash here. My brush is going to soak it all up, and I'm just going to go straight across and try and make sure that there are no little white spots there. And then I'm going to come down here and do the same thing, making sure that I've still got enough on the brush to transfer the paint over. And I'm trying to go from left to right, and that's my wash. Now for a graded wash, we do it a little differently. We tilt the paper a bit. And you can either start with your really dark at the top and then just keep adding water down, or you could start light and then add more paint, sorry. We're going to start with our basic dark band of paint. We're going to lift up everything else we have on our purple. We're going to put it across here. Try and get the most paint we can get on there. There we go. And now we're just going to dip our brush into water and then let the paint just run down. Okay, until we keep dipping our brush into water until there isn't anything more. And that's called a graded wash. Now, the best thing to do here, because I've got all this water at the bottom, is just take your brush and let it soak it up. Let the brush soak it up. Now it's very light, so here you see an even wash all the way around. Here you see a little bit of a darker line, and then it lightens up as you go along. We'll see how it does when we're drying it. I'm seeing that the purple in my wheel is just moving around here. So I'm going to try and get it back to where it should be. And like I said, if you find that it's too much, just take your brush, lift it up, and then touch your tissue and get rid of the excess moisture. Okay, we'll let that keep drying. So let me write down a few of the things that we're doing right now. This is our color wheel that we have going here. And we have been making different colors out of our 3 colors of phthalo blue, green shade, hansa yellow light, and permanent rose. This has been our wash, and this is our grated wash. Okay. Now, I'm going to let that dry because I'm going to show you a glazing technique over top of that. In the meantime, I need to go back to these colors that are still trying to dry here and do 2 more things. I need to create a red purple color, which means I have to take some more of my permanent rose and a little bit more of my phthalo blue to make that purple again. Okay, that's too dark. I need more of the permanent rose again. Now that's pretty much the color that I had here, right? So I need to add more permanent rose in here to get more of a magenta color, and that's what I've got right here. So that's a combination of the red and the purple together to make more of a reddish purple. Now if I go back and I add a little bit more blue to that again, now I'm getting what looks like a very nice dark purple, but I kind of want more like a, yeah, there we go, an ultramarine blue type blue, because we need a warmish blue here beside our cool blue, which is the phthalo blue green shade. So now we've got a lovely coolish blue, a warmish blue, which is having fun with my purple here. We have a nice violet, we have a magenta, we have a permanent rose, which is our cool red, we have a warm red, we have an orange that has disappeared, we need to fix our orange. And we have a warm yellow and a cool yellow, which we need to fix as well. So let's go back into my clean water. Always try and have 2 sets of water around you. The better, more water you have, the better. Let's go back in here and try and remake that nice orange. I'm going to add just a little bit more yellow to that. And a little bit more permanent rose. Because I don't want it going back to my Carmen, I want more of a nice orange. A little bit more yellow. There we go. So let's just add a little bit of nice orange right at the base here so you can see the differences of what you can make. One being strong and one being a little bit lighter. And I'm just going to clean my brush, dab it out, and then just let that diffuse out here a little bit more. There we go. Now let's get that warm yellow back. I just need to bring in some more yellow. That's still a bit too orangey for me. A little too orangey for me. Still a little too orangey for me, as you can see. Let's try and pull up some more yellow. Almost. Let's try that. Very carefully not to. That's a bit still too muddy, actually. It's got some blue on it from my blue portions, so that's why it's coming out muddy. Let's lift that up just a bit. But you can see it's warmed up my yellow. Okay, so we just leave it like that. Now I want a little bit more of my red, but the warm red, so I've just added it to a little bit of permanent rose to my nice yellow mix here. And I'm now pushing it over again to try and get that nice cherry red. And I'll add a little bit more of that in here. So you can see the differences in a stronger color and a lighter color. And you're going to see that when we do that with our Smarties. There, you can see right there the red. And I've cleaned up my brush and I'm just letting it push back a bit so it's a little staggered. Having lots of fun with my purple. So let's go back in here. This was my dark blue that we had. And I'm going to redo that. Okay. Let's see if we can't keep that and just soften it up at the top here. Now my phthalo blue, just so you can see the difference between the light and dark phthalo, is I'm just taking my brush and I've just put my phthalo back in here. Oh, and it's such a staining color that you can get so much intensity without having to do too much at all. We're going to have to deal with that purple a little bit more. So let's get back to that purple. There we go. And try and get that a little bit on the bluer side. There we go. There we are. So you can see the difference in color. Because otherwise these two almost look the same. And what I would do with the magenta again, and come back in here with the magenta again, to make the magenta again, and then I'm just going to add a little bit more in here. And hopefully it won't contaminate with my permanent rose. And a little bit more permanent rose just there so you can see the differences you can get. Let's do it again with our very light yellowish green. There happens to be just a little bit of a tinge of contamination here on the edge of my... Let's try it. No, that's too yellowish. Oh, over here. There we go. Let's try that. Let's try that again. There we go. There it is. So that's my greenish yellow. Okay, and for the Viridian,